the more that I can commit to being my authentic self and my authentic expression with agreements that we have around the capacity, that's inviting him deeper into his authentic expression. Yoga and meditation helped, but they also weren't really getting to the root. They weren't truly holistic in nature. Welcome to today's episode. I am so honored to have my guest, Leola, with us today. She is a pleasure priestess, founder of Talk Tantra To Me, and best-selling author of the book, Sacred Sex Ed. Leola guides her clients, individuals, and couples through transformational healing portals to awaken their sexuality and sensuality, to call humans into sacred remembrance of their life force energy and their magic. She leads phenomenal retreats and experiences for individuals to feel fully embodied and empowered. She has been studying Tantra and the esoteric arts for a long time, and I'm honored to have worked with her directly as a client and to call her a sister and a friend. Yes. Amen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. What a whirlwind. We're in the tropics. It's great.
Yeah. And we just got through a phenomenal portal together. Yep. And so there's so much energy and aliveness, and we're also integrating. So thank you so much for taking this time and being willing to be here with me today. It means a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me on this incredible podcast. I'm so excited to see where it goes. I just know the possibility of having really profound conversations like this, and how, you know, these types of conversations pull together a community. And this community, like the people listening, there is a reason that you're listening to this conversation. And we might talk about things that are taboo or edgy or new or interesting in any way. And I just want to reiterate, it's no coincidence that you're here. And thank you for being here. Thank you for leaning into something that might even be a little different for you.
Yeah. Thank you for recognizing that. And I really believe in the authentic expression of Tantra as like this weaving, right? And we get to pull through so many different threads and, you know, weave this exquisite tapestry through the discussion of intimacy. And I'm just curious for you and your journey, like when did you become aware that you wanted to focus on intimacy and that you ultimately wanted to show up in service to humanity in this field of intimacy?
Yeah, you know, the time between when I discovered Tantra or discovered the possibility of this world and this work to when I actually stepped into it professionally was about 5 years. So there was, you know, a period, quite a big period in between, in which I was really just on my solo journey of self-discovery and practice, and really just seeing the possibility of this work. And the moving into it professionally, deciding that it was something that, you know, I should do, would want to do, was worthy of doing, was a completely different, you know, initiation and portal. But that happened about 6 years ago when I decided to step into the space professionally. And it was kind of something that I fell into. So, you know, I had my own transformation via Tantra. And I think that, you know, many people get pulled into this world and intimacy, right? They get pulled into this world because of this curiosity, like the, you know, taboo nature, the sexy pieces. Like I got into Tantra because of like cool sex tricks. Like that was my gateway. I was like, oh, cool sex tricks. Like, yes.
Yeah. I love the authenticity of that, right? Like
that's my truth. And I think that's what a lot, and probably a lot of people don't want to say that, but that's what it was for me. I had heard of Tantra. The first time I heard of Tantra, I was much younger. I was actually maybe in like high school or middle school. And there was a history of sex show on some like Discovery Channel, but it was really late at night. And I remember, you know, having my remote set to like go to like SpongeBob or something else, because I was afraid my parents would see
like
that like I'm like watching this history
right.
of sex show. I think that that's the first time that I heard about Tantra. And then it had been many years before I like actually discovered it. And then many more years I finally got into it professionally, but it was kind of an accident. I had been through my transformation, and then I was just excited to talk about Tantra to like people that would listen. And it wasn't something that I was, like posting about on social media. It wasn't something that I was talking to my friends or family about, because that felt vulnerable. I didn't want to be misunderstood. But I had a few safe people that I started to open up to about my journey. And I had also had people that witnessed me through my journey, through the transformation, and were curious. Because it wasn't just the sex tricks. Like, it wasn't like people were like, you're having sex different. Like, that wasn't it,
Sure.
Obviously it was my whole being changed, which is what I see possible when you do work with healing your sexuality. And I think that Tantra is a great vehicle for that. But for me, I healed my relationship to the energy that brought me into this world, right? Which is sexuality, which is life force. It's much bigger than your sex life. It's life force. It's the energy that brought you into this world. So I healed that. People noticed it, started asking questions. And there was one individual in particular that was kind of a father figure to me, but I was also kind of his spiritual muse.
Yeah.
And we had, like dinner one night, and I was sharing some things, and I ended up doing some spontaneous body work on him. And he had quite a big breakthrough in relationship to his inner child. I'd known this man for years, never seen him have a genuine emotional reaction ever. Was very business minded. He's a man that's been on like the building teams of some of the biggest tech products that all of us use every day. But was on like the original teams, right? And so he was a very interesting, but very intellectual person. And he had quite a big emotional catharsis. And so we had dinner, we went back to his hotel room, had this tantric bodywork experience. I'm not thinking anything of it. I go home and he sends me money. He sends me $1,000. And I was like a broke young woman. And I was really confused, but also elated, but also worried and scared. But he basically said, I've done therapy for 10 years. I've been to all the medicine shamans you can think of. And this has been one of the most transformational experiences of my life. And I want to pay you as if you're my therapist. So here's $1,000. When can I do my next session?
Wow.
And I was like, what? I don't do sessions. I don't know what you're talking about. And but that kind of was the beginning. And then I had a whole ego death around, is this sex work? Like, is this what I'm kind of building my career in this other place. Do I want to take this big risk? And that was kind of the beginning of my journey.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. So much there. And I feel like I want to go back to your own personal story. You mentioned several times, like, before, after my transformation. And so kind of color this in for us, because, you're using this expression to mean something that's contextualized for you. And maybe we're talking as sisters, and I kind of know maybe you're referencing a spiritual awakening or whatever, but like to just share with the listeners and the audience, like, who were you before, and what was this transformation that happened in you, and what healing modalities did you discover to guide you into this transformation?
Yeah, great question. So before Tantra, BT, before Tantra. BT, before Tantra. So I grew up in the Midwest, in Missouri, in a pretty small-ish conservative town, conservative upbringing, which was incredible in many aspects. I did beautiful, blessed upbringing in so many ways. But I also had a lot of, trauma as well. And particularly what I would say is an inherently traumatizing sexual education that then led to exploring my sexuality in ways that were like quite frankly just dangerous. Like I put myself in many dangerous circumstances because I didn't know any better. And I was given a sex education that was abstinence-based, fear-based, definitely not pleasure-based, definitely not honest. And so I kind of, but I was also like a very sensual creature from a young age. And So I went to kind of explore on my own and find answers. And I was connecting with boys and young men that were, probably more confused than I was, and also didn't have tools like consent. Sure. And so by the time I was in my early 20s or late teens, early 20s, I had, experienced sexual assaults, and, many other different shades and colors of non-consensual connection. And then on top of it, I had, a very patriarchal upbringing, a very religious upbringing. And I'm not, anti-religion, but I also feel that there's a lot of controversy in most major religions, including Tantra, have been colored by patriarchy and capitalism. And they're not fully in essence of how they were directly channeled from God. Right. So, and then, I also grew up in an area where the median income was very low as well. And so my relationship to abundance was quite fear-based and not really expansive. So I left my small town. I was one of very few from my high school that went out of state for college. I went to Chicago, and really got to see a bit more of the world. And in that process, I learned about meditation and I learned about yoga. And those were incredible modalities. And I started to realize, wow, I'm a really anxious creature. I'm a very activated creature. I'm very reactive to my environment. And so yoga and meditation helped to a degree, but they also weren't really getting to the root. They weren't truly holistic in nature. And that's when I discovered Tantra, because, and to me, it is a truly, holistic space where I think that Tantra is very sexualized, but it's about a lot of other things too. But I do appreciate that they're honoring Tantra and shamanic sexuality, which are the two lineages that I identify with the most. They both recognize that there's this spiritual world and there's this physical world, and there's an energy that connects them that is procreative and it is life force. And to me, it's bigger than sex. It's how can I be turned on by life? How can I see that everything around me is alive? And what does it mean to interact with an alive experience?
Yes. Oh, I love this. Yeah. And I think so many humans can relate to this upbringing, right? And we honor our parents and the societal and institutional structures that we were raised in, whether it's dogma-based religion or just, values. We can honor some of those Midwestern values. I know we have that shared thread, but it's limiting, right? And it's constrictive and contractive and judgmental. And it's right, wrong, good, bad. And so would you say that in your transformation and how you found Tantra, is that what the expression of understanding that you could release some of the judgment, or was it more the shadows, or you referenced some of the sexual experiences that were non-consent based? So what was it in that initial pull to Tantra? And I don't know if it felt like a hook or it felt more I like to say following these breadcrumbs, right? If you get curious and you find something and then you start to kind of unravel, I guess what was it that helped you shift and maybe release some of that old programming?
Yeah, to me, when I first started learning about Tantra, it was these are the things that I've always felt and been thinking, but I never heard or felt anyone else say them before. And so there was just such a deep exhale of, okay, I'm not crazy. I was making myself bad or wrong for feeling differently than the people that I was around or where I was raised. And what really resonated with me was this, in Tantra, there's less good, bad, right, wrong. It's really about your come from, and coming from a place of, am I moving from my highest love? Am I moving from my highest truth? And being in right relationship with yourself and letting go of what anyone else thinks about your expression of your highest love or your highest truth, but knowing in your heart of hearts that that's where you're coming from, right? So, to me, the definition of Tantra that I love and appreciate the most is the fact that, Tantra is actually two Sanskrit words put together, Sanskrit being this ancient language from East Asia in which many, Hindu tantric texts were written in. But Tan means to expand and Tra means to liberate. And so to live a tantric lifestyle is subjective, because what is expansive and liberating to me is going to be different from you. And we could even see that in the experience that we had this weekend, at our retreat. I have full trust that you were living in your expansion and liberation, but your how you moved through the space was very different than me. And even for me, I can think about if I were moving through that space 5 years from now or 5 years ago, I would have moved completely differently than I did this weekend. Even if I would have moved through the container 2 weeks ago, I probably would have moved through it differently.
Yeah.
So what I love about Tantra is it's like really this permission to be in constant calibration with your authentic self and your authentic expression of divine love and divine truth in any given moment. And so it's also this relationship with like being in integrity with yourself. And it's like, it's a curious place to be in because it really takes this level of letting go what other people think and trusting yourself and trusting your feelings and trusting your body. But also, as you spoke about shadow work, being curious about, okay, am I just doing something because it feels good and that means that I'm doing it from my love or my truth? Or is there a shadow or a past trauma or something else that's coloring the experience? So it's also this path of deep self-awareness and radical self-responsibility that I really resonate with too.
Yeah. And it's amazing that in this, as you mentioned, the expansion and the liberation is not only going to look unique between each and every individual, but in each and every moment, right? There's all these iterations of, like you said, how you move through the space this weekend, was this weekend. It was a moment and you're in this deep presence and awareness and attunement to the moment, and you're not comparing it to even a week ago or a year ago, what would have happened or should have or could have, right? We're not in would have or should have or could have. We're just like fully in it in the moment. And it's a state of beingness, I like to say, but I really love that you weave in like the higher states of consciousness. And so maybe if you can kind of unpack that in, not in this like esoteric spiritual way, but just for like the everyday listener, like because we're using this flowery language, right? For some, and they're like, oh, everything's light and love. And we have to be in these like higher states of consciousness. And that means we're always angelic and etheric. But like, what does it really mean for the everyday human experience?
Yeah. I think a great example of bringing in like more of the darker primal energies, it's like trusting that whatever is real and alive for you in that moment is medicine for whatever space you're in. Whether that's in a workshop or whether that's at work or whether that's in the bedroom, right? And so again, it's this radical authenticity and self-responsibility of where I'm at and who I am in this moment. Yeah. So a great example would be like my husband and I making love, and maybe like I have this idea of, oh, it needs to look this like stereotypically tantric, slow breathing priest, like love, priestess, love and light, like but what's really moving through me on a deeper level that maybe I'm conscious of or maybe I'm not, is that there is this rebirthing that's happening, and there's this Kali-like energy there's this like angry energy, and I want to like fucking growl at him, and it makes no sense. And I could be totally worried about him being like, why is she fucking growling at me right now? But what if I just like knew that I chose to be with a person that's going to be able to hold all the shapes and colors and expressions of me. And there's a safety here. And like, what if that's actually the permission to go deeper into the experience by honoring what's real? Yes. And so maybe I do just growl, and maybe that takes us on a completely different journey than what I thought that I wanted or what I intended. But I honored that feeling when it came up. Yeah. And it brought us into this like other space of deeper trust with each other, but also a wider expression of our love, and like seeing like it's almost like, here's another example. I feel like I'm kind of talking in a circle, maybe you can add some more to this too.
Yeah, I could.
But like, I think of like, when like a lioness, like she kills the prey, and it's like this intense, again, deep primal energy, and like she's like protecting it from predators for her lover, but she's also protecting the prey too, and like wanting to really get the best out of the prey and honor the life of the dead animal. Like there's just so much more than what's on the surface, I think. So I don't know, I'm gonna leave it there because I feel like I just said a lot of things.
Well, I mean, you tapped into your partnership, which is exquisite. I want to honor you for that, and that you get to be that full range of expression, right? Like there's something to be said for the individual work and what Tantra does on that individual path as the sovereign self of really, like you said, the self-love and the acceptance for the totality of who you are as a human and divine, and for all that is, and that full range of expression and aliveness, right? We get to honor the grotesque and the ugly and the beautiful and the pretty and the sadness and the anger and the wrath and the bliss and the empowerment, all of it. And then in partnership, it's like, okay, what comes up? Like, how does that get reflected back to us? Or how does that person able to not just hold the space for it all, but also either contain it or direct it or like redirect it, or we get to play in so many different archetypes and iterations. And I'm just like, okay, there's so many directions we could take this to, but it's like, how has it come through in your partnership, this work in Tantra and in this self-acceptance? Yeah,
I think that this is a great segue into kind of what I was saying is it creates a whole different level of permission for the other to explore as well. Like the more that I can commit to being my authentic self and my authentic expression with, you know, the agreements that we have around the capacity as well, that's inviting him deeper into his authentic expression. And so like in those moments, again, just going back to like, oh, I'm growling or I'm making different noises, I'm doing a different expression during sexuality that might not be stereotypical, like that's initiating him deeper into, you know, his primal essence and his shamanic nature too. You know, there was a moment at the event this weekend where Andrew was like, felt something in my heart and was like doing like, we're off to the side. He's doing some de-armoring stuff that's totally not in the workshop at all and could have honestly been disruptive. Like I was kind of like, oh, is this disrupting other people's experience? Is this disrupting the facilitator and their facilitation? And it like, it could be all of those things. Sorry.
No, I'm saying it didn't. I was saying
someone, you're like shaking your head. I'm like, wait,
I'm like, it was not disruptive. Like that's the beauty of this work is the space, the container is able to hold it all.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing. And that's really where I was getting at, where like, it actually really wasn't disrupting anyone. And in fact, there were several people that came up to us and asked questions and were curious. I'm like, how can I learn more about that sort of thing? And it's permission and it's evidence. And I could totally see like, if I was a facilitator and people were doing that off to the side, how disruptive that would be for me and how that could be an initiation for my ego or could be an initiation for me to step into greater containment of a, like, so it could go either way. It's like, this could be like, okay, like Leola, you're let's just put me in the facilitator role and there's someone off to the side doing something completely unrelated to what I am teaching. And it's like, it could be disrespectful, right? And that could like really throw me off as a facilitator. And I could have things to say about that to them. And like, it could also be a reflection of, well, how well am I actually holding the container if it matters to me that everyone's in cohesion? Yeah. So it's like, again, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It could be an initiation of my ego into not being so worried about like just trusting the container, trusting the people in it and their sovereignty. Or it could be, this is my initiation into holding a container in a way that I want to hold it so we're in cohesion. Does that make sense?
Like, I feel like it's not even an or, it's a both and an and. It's like this awareness that as you presence, there's medicine in all of it. And I kind of want to get back onto, because you've woven in the topic of shamanic sexuality, which I know we're both rooted and grounded in ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts, which I truly share with people is shamanic sexuality at the foundation. And it's also a cornerstone and an anchor in my own practice and how the medicine moves through me to be of service to others in this field. I always say it's a fusion for me of shamanism, somatics, and sacred sexuality. And so I'd love to hear your transmission on what is shamanism for folks listening and how does that get woven into your practices and intimacy and Tantra?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I think shamanism overall, like as a broad concept, is really this understanding again that this is a spiritual, we're spiritual beings living a human experience, right? And I think when we bring sexuality into it, the thing that I love about shamanism is honoring this energy, like really honoring this life force rather than making it taboo, rather than making it something that happens in the dark, something that's bad, something that's wrong, dirty, or even like overly overly puritizing it. Like, I think that there can be this duality that you see in modern religious context. To me, shamanism kind of debunks that and says that this is all sacred, you know, and like, how can we see all aspects of the human experience as sacred expressions of the divine, even the things that are confusing or violent or damaging? Like, where can we find the godliness in it, and where can we also deconstruct the shadow or the contortion of the divine as well, and use the contortions not so much as like a judgment of the shadow, but as a, how can I make love to this and integrate it into wholeness?
How can we make love to these contortions and shadows? And
yeah. So it's my belief that those shadows or those contortions aren't inherently bad or wrong, but they're parts of us that are either immature, so they've not been able to fully mature into a more whole expression, or they're hurt parts of ourselves. So like, what are we like, you know, when we think about immature qualities, it's young, it's youthful, it's sweet. There's like a naive quality. There's a, like, it's like a little child. Like, would you, like, how do you grow up a child? Not by like chastising them to death. It's by like lovingly taking them through an initiation. And these, you know, healed parts of ourselves, we don't, you know, heal them by chastising them further or trying to avoid them or shut them down. No, it's by like, you know, how can I love on this piece and then, you know, bring it into like, hey, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I honor you. And there's this whole other experience. How can I bring in that wound into a more healed expression?
Yeah, I want to pause here because I think like words carry so much meaning. And I think so many humans hear this word or this expression of immature. And like we grew up like, oh, don't be so immature. Like you're immature. And it's like there's something else there with this word that like you're alluding to, but I don't know if it's fully landed yet, of like, what are we really referring to related to like the integrated self, or the, and again, we used the term earlier of like the higher consciousness. It's like, what is actually happening in, and you use the word initiation, which we're not used to initiatory rites and rites of passage in modern day society. So like, how do we go from immature to mature?
I think it really depends on like what the quality is, right? Okay. Like, what is the actual immature piece? What is the archetype related to it? And then the journey is going to be different for each of those pieces. I think that Carl Jung's work and his archetypal work is like this is such a bigger conversation, right? You know? Yeah. So it's like just kind of dropping, so just dropping some pieces here. But I think that like, looking into Carl Jung's work could be really, really powerful. But again, it's also seeing that I think that when we talk about like divine or like higher self versions of ourselves, we think about these like more societally celebrated archetypes of like lightness. So like, you know, we think about like for the masculine, we would think about like, you know, the knight in shining armor, but we don't want to talk about the warrior who would like really lay down his sword for, or like not lay down his sword, but really fight for a cause that he believes in and like is willing to risk his life and also risk the life of others for a greater good. Like that's a really intense archetype that we don't want to talk about, or we want to make bad or wrong, because through history, the warrior archetype has been so misconstrued and the warrior has been made out to be so bad or wrong because of the violence. But in reality, like there are cases where I believe that, you know, violence is necessary for this paradigm that we're living in. And I didn't always feel that way. And I think that's part of like, you know, we live in this world now where I feel that a lot of the feminine energies and archetypes are trying to feminize the masculine and wanting to shut down this warrior energy that's actually more needed than ever. But the problem is like we have this warrior in the shadow who is fighting for his ego, or he's fighting for someone else's ego or a cause that he's not even fully grounded in, or maybe he's bloodthirsty, who knows? But we really do need that mature warrior. And the reality is that the funny thing is to really mature the warrior, you do need the feminine, and you need the priestess to initiate him into that. And you also need the king to initiate him into that. And that's to me why community is so powerful and important, and having really powerful mentors and also examples of like the opposite opposite energy. Like to mature your inner masculine, you actually need to mature your inner feminine because it's mirrored and balanced. So again, this is all very esoteric.
I know
the way that we're speaking, but
it is, and it is. I mean, I like to talk about the warrior's role, not only historically and in antiquity, but also the modern warrior, whether you show up in the boardroom or the family structure or community, as like at the root, the warrior is in his heart to protect, preserve, and provide. And so this is a sacred masculine frequency. Anyone in their masculine energy, and I know we know what we're referring to as masculine. We're not referring to humans with cocks. We're referring to this energy that is here, like in consciousness and presence and containment. But the warrior is really coming from the heart-centered space of like that desire to fight for that which he believes in, which historically was always to protect his land and his people, to protect that which he truly cared about, his wife, his family, and the land that he loved. And so I think when we return back to that, and that, like you said, that mature iteration of the warrior, it makes sense of why the modern day warrior maybe is a little immature, because we've forgotten some of that. I mean, I think that like a modern example of an unintegrated warrior is the man that's like climbing the corporate ladder and doing and saying, oh, I'm doing this for my family and I'm doing this for generational wealth so that my children don't have to suffer as I did, whatever. But in reality, they never get off that ladder and they never actually they never get off the battlefield. Right. And so they're never really integrating into what they're doing it for, which is for their families, or they're not being like the true leader of the household that they think that they are, and they're leaving it all to their wife or otherwise. And so it's an interesting dynamic that we see play out. Yeah, that's an interesting example. I want to kind of carry that through and go deeper, because I know you do work with men, and I loved your story of your initiation into this work came through the masculine, came through this body work and this man recognizing that there's healing that needs to be done. And so, what is the modern day warrior, and what are the ailments, and how can they utilize these practices to integrate and heal?
Yeah. So who is the modern day warrior? I mean, we've given some examples of like the unintegrated warrior. And I think that like there could be space to talk a little bit more about like integrated warrior archetype. So, I mean, just like in modern or like popular culture, one of my favorite expressions of like the warrior is William Wallace in Braveheart. Have you seen that? So it's like, he doesn't really want to fight. Like, I think that that's like, to me, like the real integrated warrior is like, I will fight where it's necessary and where it's good to uphold my my home and my woman, and to like fight for her honor. But like really, like I just want to live my life. I actually want to be in my king. Like that's really where the highest calling is. But knowing that like you do have to have that foundation there as the warrior, otherwise your kingdom could fall at any moment. It's like having that backbone, having that spine, but also doing it from like, this is for my love. Like I'm doing this from a place of real love. I think Severus Snape is another great example, like from pop culture, of like a warrior in integrity. So he's fighting in a almost more like magician-like context, but because I mean, he is a magician, right? Literally, I mean, not literally, it's a show, but you know, it's like he has this capacity to hold and to wield these powers of emotional intelligence and almost like manipulation. And it's like another one of those places where like Snape, like, I don't know if like, do you watch Harry Potter? I don't want to like.
No, that's okay. But I'm sure a lot of people do.
I mean, I'm just going to do the example and trust that it's here for people that need it. But yeah, I mean, Snape is this character that like you watch the shows and you villainize him. Like you're you're
he's all
bad.
in black and
and he's actually like kills one of the best characters. Like who's
the actor? He has that interesting voice that's like alluring.
Alan Rickman.
Yeah, it's alluring, yet it's like scary. You're just like, am I drawn to this or am I repelled? But that's an interesting dynamic. He's very dark
masculine, like another like, But then by the end of the movie, you see that all of this was from love. Actually, even the character that he killed, who's beloved, asked him to kill him so that he could show his loyalty to the dark side by killing this amazing other wizard. And then And so like he builds this integrity, and the other wizard was dying anyways. He's like, I'm going to die anyways. So just kill me. It'll show your loyalty. And then you can kind of get in. And in the end, like it's all
weaving Tantra into Hollywood right now.
I know, but like it's so good. So anyway, by the end, like it's revealed like this entire time he was acting from his deepest love, but no one else could see it. And that's to me what it means to really live like this tantric life, is to do like the hard work, but from the place of love, be willing to trigger people, be willing to be misunderstood, but know at the end of the day that you're moving from your deepest integrity and your deepest truth and your deepest love. And like that type of warrior energy is like exactly what's needed. Again, just being willing to be misunderstood, but for a greater good, and being really in your conviction about something that is greater than you. Like, in that divine consciousness. And you can't really do that unless you really do the deeper, darker work, not just the love and light work.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, be willing to trigger people, be willing to activate humans.
Yeah.
How do you feel that you embody that?
It's interesting.
And I can respond to it, being someone who's worked with you.
I mean,
because you are like, we don't say a modern day warrior, and even like how the warrior archetype could show up in the feminine, and I'm again putting that in quotes energetically, is like the huntress, but also it is really deeply connected to the queen, and also the priestess, like pulling out that sort of discernment and knowing that sometimes when you're doing that, people are going to perceive you as being cruel and harsh, and let's be modern, a bitch.
Yeah.
So sometimes people could be like, Leola, you're being a bitch.
Yeah.
When you're triggering them or activating them.
Yeah. So I think for my personal
I never felt that way, but I'm just like,
but people have. I think that at the end of the day, here's the thing. Everyone comes into this world with their own constitution and gifts and really like unique magic and medicine and purpose, right? Like purpose is the word that I would use the most accurately. And to me, your purpose is not something that you need to go and find. It's like, that would be dumb, right? Like, why would you need to go find the thing that you were literally brought into this world for? That makes no sense.
But yeah, we use that expression. So yeah,
so to me, it's not something that you need to go find. You don't need to go find your purpose or discover your purpose. It's more of like an unwrapping. It's this gift that you're bringing to the world, and you're maybe unwrapping it throughout your adulthood and your finding of your authentic self, I think is a more accurate, interpretation. It's not something you need to go find. It's something that you're unwrapping, and it's for you and it's for the world. So you don't need to go discover your purpose. You just need to find your authentic self. That's really, and just being your authentic self is your gift for the world.
Yeah.
That's really where the juice is, and your authentic self can evolve in different chapters. So to me, my expression of the warrior is really just being my authentic expression of self and being courageous enough to do that and not worry about what other people will think. And I trigger people constantly. And I think that that's my expression of the warrior, is just being me and letting myself trigger people. And I have had clients. I have a client that's worked with me for 3 years now. And 6 months into the container, she was like, I'm unfollowing you. Because you just trigger me so much. All of your stuff just triggers me so much. But she kept working with me because she can see the value in, she's still one of my clients to this day.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value in getting curious about what the trigger is as well. And so that was, it takes also a really self-aware person to.
I would love to share my experience with that as well, because I found, and this is true specifically for me, in relationship to other women, in relationship to female embodied leaders, right? Because I didn't grow up having role models of women in power. I always worked for men. I had a corporate background where my bosses were men. I supported the masculine. And so my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I love her. But I didn't have those models of, and I'm a little bit older than you. So I grew up more in the 80s where it was women were either housewives, maybe nurses, maybe teachers, but women were not CEOs. They were not building businesses or brands. They were not really in political office. And when these women did step into those spaces and places, they were often labeled as being bitches, right? Or wielding their power in such a way where they either had to show up in the masculine frequency with the big fucking shoulder pads and I am a man. They were women, but they were actually really men, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't have this expression of the embodied feminine. And so it's coming alive and it's being awakened within consciousness. And this is why it's such an honor to have you as an empowered and embodied leader, not just in this space, but just for humanity, because it's a unique new blueprint. Like, this is a brand new blueprint.
Yeah, it is.
Women empower. Again, we're always like wearing like the suits and the pants, and like being in the boardroom, literally acting like men. And so it triggers other women when we see these powerful, when we say embodied, we mean like in touch with their sensuality and sexuality, and in like this constant awareness of, maybe it's somatic awareness or felt sense or whatever it is, but you're like not showing up in a space just pretending to be a man. You're actually like, wait, I'm going to soften. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to tune into my body and my nervous system and maybe my womb space, and maybe I'm on my bleed right now. So I'm not going to take client calls because I really want to go inward, right? And this is a new blueprint.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for being the new blueprint.
I mean, thank you. Wow, we're all doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there is, and I'm not the first person to say this, but I think that there is a new wave of feminism that's happening. And I really resonate with what you said, because I feel similarly that I grew up in a wave of feminism where it wasn't as much about feminine power. It was more about women taking on masculine power in a way. And I don't think that that's bad. I certainly do that. I've enjoyed it. It served me very well, in fact. And I'm ready for a new wave of feminism where we're honoring feminine power for feminine beings. And what does that look like to be fully in your feminine power? And then, you know, also, I mean, in the tantric lineages, it's like, as we've kind of been alluding to as well, it's to really be in divine union with yourself is to, and to me, like when you're in divine union in yourself, that's where you really like are divine incarnate in a way, you're embodied. And that's not something that like, you know, you master everything and then one day you flip a switch and suddenly you're like, you know, in your divine goddess essence every day. No, it's like a journey, and there's moments of like calibration, right? But to me, when you know, fully integrate your divine masculine, the light and the dark, then you kind of fully embody your king energy. And then when you fully, you know, master your divine feminine, both the light and the dark, that's when you fully embody your queen energy. And when you fully embody your king and your queen, that's when you're in your divine oneness type of energy, right? But to me,
intermarriage.
Yes, intermarriage.
Heteroscamos.
Yes. So now I think that like it's this really beautiful time where women are invited to explore the full range of their feminine power, not just, and like we've also been living in this paradigm where you kind of have to choose between, you've had to choose between, oh, I'm like wife, mother, Madonna, or I'm going to go this more dark feminine horror, you know, witch sort of route with my life. Whereas I feel like now we're in this time where it's actually safe for women to explore more of their range in one lifetime, and to be, you know, the wholesome whore, right? Or like, you know, the slutty wife, or, you know, the boss babe and the mom. And that's a really like fortunate place to be born into society for us. I feel very grateful.
Yeah. I mean, what's coming up for me in this is, you know, the dark feminine, you know, going back to Tantra, there's no good, bad, right, wrong. And like dark is not dark because it's scary or bad. Dark is literally just feminine, right? It's, and when we talk about the lower vibrational energies, it's not that lower vibrational is bad. It's that we're literally talking about the primal chakras of the root and the sacral and the solar, and which is connected more to this earth, which is a feminine frequency. And it has been vilified and shamed because it's been misunderstood. But even these concepts of like, the whore or the witch, it's like we're not trying to evolve out of them and be like, oh, I can't be that part of myself, or I represent that archetype. It's about how do we integrate it into the totality of who we are, which is, again, what you're a representation of too in this field, and inspiring and activating other women to feel into that for themselves. Because again, we were served this menu of like, what are the offerings of like, what does it mean to be a woman? Okay, yes, a mother. Oh, I'm a good mother. And in that, I'm also like kind of a martyr. Like I do what I'm told to be the good wife and the good mother. And I volunteer at my kids' school. And I I put myself last because my kids are so important. And okay, well, maybe I choose work because I'm gonna be, the breadwinner, and I'm gonna, make all the money for the family. And I'm this, like you said, the feminism of like, I'm empowered and I'm taking the power back. But that was the only menu we were given.
Yep. Yeah. It was basically, you can be a virtuous martyr mother. You can be a naive child girl forever. And even to the point of like, you have a kid and then you parentify your child. I've had, relationships where like they're basically parenting their mother, and that's a really interesting dynamic as well. Yeah. I think that the beautiful place that we're living in now is recognizing again that there's this new wave of feminism and its full range of feminine power, and realizing that a lot of our power is in our bodies. A lot of our power is our connection to the divine that is unique for women. I mean, women really have the ability to literally bring like a soul into the earth. And like, that's one manifestation of this power, but it's not exclusive to the experience of childbirth and being a mother. No, we have a unique intuitive connection to the divine that is really powerful. But we're taught that, if you're hearing voices or if you're like seeing things other people aren't seeing that you're crazy, or if you're using herbs to heal, well, then that's not based off science. So you're a nut job, right? And it's like, there's actually so much power in women with our ability to tune into our intuitions and connect to the earth and its unique medicines.
To our pussy. Like, let's not
that
forget.
Was the next piece.
Yeah. Let's talk about pussy as power. Yeah.
So to me, like there's three main superpowers that I believe have been demonized in the feminine, and they are the oracle, the intuition, which has been made out to be the witch, and which actually etymologically, the root is wise, it's wisdom. So like we've made out the witch to be this like demonic creature, when in reality, like she's actually, it's from the word wise, which is related to the word wise. Then you have the whore, or the sensual, the pussy, those parts of the feminine, the sexual, sensual side, and whore as well. That word etymologically comes from hora, which is like the brides of God in Judaism. So it's like also beautiful. Prostitute means to lay down at the altar, or prostitute comes from the word prostrate, which means to lie down at the altar, whether she's lying there to have sex or to pray. Like, what if it's the same thing, and so
sacrifice herself.
Yeah. So there's a lot of beauty as well in the sensuality. And of course there's shadow in our sensuality too. And I think that that's the part of this feminine superpower that's been demonized. She who, breaks apart families with her seduction or ruins reputations, doing it from this place of wounding or immaturity rather than from the whole expression. And then you have the third, gift of the feminine that has been demonized or darkened, or shadowed, I suppose is a better word, which is our emotional alchemy. Emotional women have also been made out to be like crazy, chaotic, uncontrollable. When in reality, when that power is harnessed, channeled, it can actually be like a muse frequency that comes forth. It can be inspiration. Like you think about Beyonce, who was cheated on and then made the Lemonade album, which was like insanely profitable for her. Also touched a lot of women's hearts, including mine. And it's incredible. So like that gift of the feminine to go into her feelings so deeply and alchemize it into, pain into purpose, or mess into message, or, heartbreak into art, is a real beautiful gift of the feminine that, the masculine and our children and the whole world can really benefit from. But it's my belief that there is so much power in these parts of the feminine, and that's threatening. It has been threatening to the powers that be. So what better way to, control than by disempowering people from like their very organic gifts.
And what's coming up for me is, I love how you represented these archetypes. So epic. Yeah. I can't wait to re-listen to that part of this podcast episode. But it's in the male-bodied individuals as well, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so especially when you're speaking into the alchemization, into artistry and the creativity that comes from that transmutation of like, how do we take the suffering, like the affair, and turn it into lemonade? We love that song, right?
Yep.
And that when men are channeling their sacred life force energy, it often shows up as creativity of the artist, of the activist, and also the intuition. I mean, I have 3 sons, and I remember sharing with one of my sons a transmission on this regarding polarity and feminine. I said, well, you have an inner feminine. And he was like, what? I'm like, that like your attraction to women in the outer form is only because this is me. This is how I talk to my kids.
I love this so much.
Is only because you're seeking that recognition within the self of what is your inner feminine. And he's like, well, Mom, I'm not creative. He's like an athlete. He's like classic bro, like Eddie, I love you. Future frat boy. But he's like, I don't have creativity in that way. I'm not an artist. And I said, it's your intuition. Baby. Like he's highly intuitive, highly sensitive, tracking the field, constantly in attune with people's emotions and how they're moving through spaces and what's alive. And also that felt sense awareness that can come when you're a highly sensitive human like he is, where you perceive things, even vibrations of the planet, or, you're sensitive. He's sensitive. And so, I think it's important to recognize how these archetypes show up in men. And then obviously the sensuality, the sexuality, the like, there are male sluts. There are men that not just like that love to have sex. I think I'm curious on your transmission on this one, like how that the whore shows up in male-bodied individuals in a way that feels more feminine. Because I think we often portray the male slut or the whore, the playboy, as like a predatorial energy. So is there a way that it shows up in the feminine archetype?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. And I also resonate with like all of these archetypes exist within the male body as well as the female body. So the warrior exists within the woman, and then the, whore and the mother as well even exists within the masculine. And like, I feel like all of these things also kind of overlap, right? So you also have like in Jungian psychology, you have the lover, which is a male archetype, but can be really very similar to like the dark feminine, whore, or like, sacred seductress, or, pleasure priestess type of archetype. And it is this similar frequency of like connecting to creativity. So like, I think that's a piece too, or like when you mention like the huntress and the warrior, that relationship. So I don't think that there's like a clear line where it's like, this is a feminine archetype, this is a masculine like it's like, I think that the important piece is like seeing that these are all different tools that we're using to talk about and to intellectualize what we're feeling in our bodies, which can help us like understand and unpack and integrate. But it's also, these are just concepts that we're making up to like explain too. So I think it's like important to recognize that. But I don't know if that actually answers your question, talking about the whore in the masculine.
Well, I guess what's coming up though for me is like, you're a pleasure priestess. And you just said that again as an archetype. So like, what is a pleasure priestess?
Let's definitely get into that. I did have like a thought on this whore in a male body. I just want to just like highlight again that, again, with Tantra, there's no good, bad, right, or wrong. And I think that there can be this archetype of the masculine that is prolifically sexual, and it's important. There's like the spiritual fuckboy as well, right? That's like, again, like there's light and shadow and dark in pretty much all of these archetypes. So like, let's just look at the spiritual fuckboy that I think is like the closest to like the whore like archetype that you were saying.
Juicy,
And again, it's like, it's not about what's happening. It's not about how many women he's, connecting with. It's really about like, what is the come from this man, and where is the light in it and where is the dark, just as it is with the feminine. Like it's just as it is with the feminine that's connecting with lots of, individuals as well. It's like, okay, is this coming from an energy of, I have this beautiful, sacred life force, and to me in this season of life, what feels the most expansive and liberating is to share this energy abundantly with the world, to be evidence, to be permission, to soak in their codes and to bring my codes out into the world as well. Like that would be a really expansive expression of the spiritual fuckboy or the, sacred seductress pleasure priestess, right? And then there's also the potential shadow that's there that is, okay, am I doing this for validation? Am I doing this like to prove to myself or others that I am lovable and worthy? Am I connecting with lots of people and not deepening or committing because of my fear of commitment and having my heart broken or whatever? And like, you could have both too. You could be like, I am wanting to share my sexuality abundantly because I see the value that it's adding for myself and for the world. And you can also have, it's not, what's the expression? It's not either or, it's both and more very often. And so you can also have a little bit of that shadow there. And that doesn't mean, okay, well now I can't be a spiritual fuckboy or a pleasure priestess anymore because part of me is being validated by this. But there's the awareness of overall, this expression is actually in my highest good and in the highest good of all in this moment. But I'm also able to be mindful and notice when I'm starting to get validation from it and come back into that self-reflection of, where else can I find my worthiness and my divinity rather than, relying on this external factor? Yeah. And does that make sense?
It does. It does. I love that example, the spiritual fuckboy. Yeah. Because I think where it starts to get a little sticky and convoluted is when we're talking about these archetypes and the manifestations of them in connection with other humans, right? So we're operating in this field of expansion and how we're, like you said earlier, we use this expression that we know what it means, like moving through the space, talking about a specific retreat, a container, an experience, but also like the field of existence, life, AKA life, how we're moving through life. And if we're moving in a way that we're not able to be in our authentic expression, be our authentic self, and to be able to communicate effectively where we're at each and every moment with other individuals that we're engaging in these experiences with, or enrolling or magnetizing to our field with, I'm just going to say with consent, right? Yeah. Then that's where it's not just the consent piece in this topic, but it's also just like understanding the dynamics at play and when we're in these relational contexts of emotions, of erotic energy, and it gets kind of sticky and tricky.
It gets super sticky and tricky because I think that we don't know what we don't know, right? So as we go on this journey, we become more sovereign, but very often at the beginning of our journey, we think that we know what we want or we don't want, or what is a yes or what is a no. But we often don't really realize what is a yes or no until we're in an experience, or maybe our boundary is crossed. And so there's lots of like grace that we get to have for ourselves as well as other people. And then I think that there's a maturity that comes with, how can I attune to myself first so I can really begin to unpack and not go into overriding my nervous system, coming into this place where I actually don't really know what I want or don't want because I'm way anxious and I am in fight or flight, or I'm disassociating out of the experience and I also can't advocate for myself. So like the fact of the matter is that we live in a society where we don't really have this awareness of what's going on in our bodies. We don't really have this awareness of, we're not really invited or encouraged to really know what we want or what we don't want. We're kind of given, here's what you should want, here's the American dream, or here's the menu.
The dating apps, and when people are relating to other humans and wanting connection, intimacy, relationships, sex, it gets so confusing and convoluted.
It does. Yeah. And I mean, again, it's like to me, like the biggest like tip that I can give in moving in any of these spaces is move slower, just move so much slower so that you can listen to yourself and then also be able to listen to and attune to where someone else is. Like, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see in these spaces, going through my own experiences and also witnessing other people. And also, like at the Tantra Love Retreat, we have, people that are helping us out. And I think that like, the truth is like, even as we become more sovereign and we get to know our desires and boundaries, or like what we're really looking to get out of an experience, we forget that there's people that are brand new to the spaces. And it's like, we're like raised, like we forget that like, okay, we're all like given, like, this is what you should want, or this is what you should want to get attention. It's like, it's such an unpacking that has to happen over time. And like, there's so many layers to it that it's like, I'm still like finding new layers of what I want. And there's different seasons that happen. So anyways, that's why I really love Tantra, because it is this calibration. It's this like, where am I now? And how can I be in integrity with the truth of who I am in this moment and move slowly enough that I can be with the new things that are coming up?
Yeah. And there's the self and there's the other. Again, in most relational dynamics, it's you and one other person. It could be a couple other people.
Yeah.
And then there's the field, right? And I think what you were starting to pull in is like the attunement to the coherence of the field.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to this journey of like stepping into your authentic self, which has kind of been like the theme that we've like unconsciously taken on in this, journey.
Unconscious here. These are two conscious women having a really unconscious.
I would say we surrendered and the intention delivered itself.
Right. What's your intention? What are your desires? What are your fears? What are your boundaries? You're like, I don't have any.
We'll just see what happens. We'll see where this goes.
Flow state. It's called flow state.
Yeah. So I think that there's like this base level, like level 0 of the journey of enlightenment, or like the tantric path is like letting go of like all of the previous conditionings that you've gotten that are probably just like gunk that's getting in the way of who you really are. Right. So like that's level 0, is like, let me take all of that stuff away. And like, to me, that's probably happening in conjunction with the next levels and like continues to happen, but that's like the first step.
Sure.
And then you have the second step of, okay, let me expand my awareness and start to get curious about, okay, like there's actually this whole new menu is available as well. So I was given this menu that has a bunch of garbage on it that I'm going to clear away. And then there's also this new menu that develops. And so then you start to relate to yourself in a different way. And then there's like another level above that comes into a space of responsibility, of really like, untapping to this level of attunement to others and seeing like okay, I'm at a privileged position where I've worked through some of this stuff and I kind of can see the bullshit. And I also this new menu. And then there's people that you're connecting with that are like not even at level 0 yet. Yeah. And it can be really easy to say, well, I'm sovereign and I know what I want and I desire. And so now I can move through the space in this really free way. But if you're not also taking responsibility for the individuals that are very new on the journey, then you're doing a disservice to yourself, first of all, but you're mainly like, you're actually putting other people at danger as well. Which is where it comes into that attunement piece. Yeah.
And I mean, and this has been cultivated within you because you are a leader in this space and you are a facilitator. And so you're at that level of sacred responsibility to be of service, right? And so I do want a presence that like, if you're just operating in like human 101 and you're at the baseline of 0 and you're like, I don't want to be a leader in this timeline. Totally okay, right? If you're just like, I just want to be in my humanness and play and fuck and do all the things. But if you're in a position, one of my guides, actually, this is a shared guide between us, Frank Mondios.
He's great. Yeah.
Honoring him served me a heavy dose of medicine when I was assisting him in a container. And he said, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. Because when you decide to step into the role of being a leader and being of service, you carry that responsibility of each and every individual in that container, in that field, in that retreat.
Yep. Absolutely. It's true. And what I will say is if you're listening to this podcast, and this is like maybe controversial, but if you are like, I believe like we're all here to elevate the collective consciousness. And if you're listening to this, then you're a part of that collective. And so even if you're not like, I want to be a Tantra teacher, I want to be a facilitator, I want to lead spaces, if you are farther along on the journey of this type of self-awareness, then it is your responsibility, if you're connecting with people that are newer to this journey, to have a level of attunement to them and to not take advantage of where they are on their journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and I want to expand it even wider and say, like, if you're a CEO, if you're a business owner, if you're in a leadership role in management, like this podcast is for these individuals as well. you have a sacred responsibility to each and every human that is within your tribe or your community or your business or your organization. And this is why I think this work is so critical, and why I do really honor that you work with a lot of executive level individuals, because we're bridges, right? To bring this into we're not just here servicing people on the tantric path or spiritual awakening. We're actually here servicing leaders of our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that if you're in a leadership position, this path of Tantra, again, isn't just about your intimacy. I mean, it's about intimacy with life. You know, it's not just like intimacy with another person or sexual intimacy or relational intimacy. It's intimacy with life, and your way of being in any of these roles has the ability to have a tantric tone to it that will organically touch every person that you meet, just again, by being your authentic self. Like, I think that the greatest thing that we can do as humans for the collective is just be ourselves personally.
Yeah, I love that. And you as yourself is like, I know we talked about the pleasure priestess, but that realization, it's like, I love sex and I want to share. Is it that, or is it like what frequency comes through when you think of like your authentic expression?
What frequency comes through when I think about my authentic expression? It's a great question. And I think that, again, it's that piece of like really being with the calibration in each season of life. And to me, the pleasure priestess is an archetype that really resonates with me. And I think that I have a particular medicine with in this life. And when I'm speaking of like pleasure and like the pleasure priestess, I'm not just speaking about like, oh, pleasure arts and touching the body in pleasurable ways. I'm speaking to like the deeper pleasure of what it means to have a fulfilling life, to be fulfilled as a human, not just about these like simple pleasures. It's like, it's for the longer gain pleasure, not like the shorter pleasure that's like borrowing from the future. It's like the medicine of pleasure. Which, by the way, just like putting this here, pleasure is like legitimate, scientifically backed up medicine. For those that are like listening in and appreciate a more approach that's backed up by science, I'm one that doesn't really need it as much. Like I can feel it in my body and I know what is true and what isn't. But, and that's not to say that people that like science, like you're not superior because you're not feeling it in your body. It's just like different. We have different minds that work different ways and value different things. But you know, orgasm and pleasure in general it boosts our immune system. It's great for cardiovascular health. It's great for mental health. It's great for your nervous system, like regulation, etc. So yeah, I mean, to me, this archetype of being the pleasure priestess is helping people find this relationship to the spiritual world and the physical world in their bodies, you know, seeing their bodies as a mystery school, reading like, what is the pleasure that's in my body now? What does that have? And also, where is the pain in my body? And I don't just mean like physical pain. I mean like the emotional pains, the deeper pains of the lived experience. And what is that teaching me? And how can I find the pleasure in the pain as a teaching rather than bypassing the opportunity and seeing that like pleasure can really be found in like almost any moment if we're really willing to go there and feel it and be with it. You know, something as deep as like grief or death, which are things that we've explored very recently, like there can be a beautiful anticipation and longing and depth of feeling that comes with those types of frequencies that can tell you about how you're interacting with life itself. Like, how willing are you to surrender into the grief, and how much does the grief teach you about how big you've loved? Like the deeper the grief, in my opinion, the bigger you've loved, and what a pleasure to live a life where that is the reality.
I'm feeling some emotion bubbling up because this experience was so recent. And I would love for you to share, like, you know, to honor Andy Buru, who led us through this experience known as Rituals, and to honor our mutual friend and your business, I call him a business partner. What do you call it?
I would say he's my business partner. Work husband, business partner.
Justin Gottlieb, who produced Rituals, and we did this death ritual. And if you're open to sharing your experience.
Gosh, Yeah, I'm open to sharing. It's one of those things that it's kind of difficult to share. And this is why I'll just say, like, I love these podcasts where we like get practice as priestesses who've been doing this work for lifetimes, right? And we get this practice of like, how do I, put into words such an embodied, deep experience when in reality, like the deepest parts of these works are embodied, and it's not in just listening to a conversation. You can get like a little tiny touch of frequency transmission from listening to these words. But the real integration of this conversation is stepping into containers where there are embodiment elements, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, flying somewhere and coming to a retreat. Although to me, like that's where like a lot of the magic is. Yeah. But so I'm just going to like frame what I'm going to share by saying like, this is very in essence, because it can be challenging to share, but
yeah. And I feel called to presence that this is in consent in terms of like, obviously we're protecting the sanctity and the confidentiality of the container and the ritualistic nature of the experience. So we're not going to be sharing
what happened.
Any details of the ritual itself, but just, the
takeaways.
And I know you know how to frame it in such a way, but
Yeah. So, and the beautiful thing is like, I have been waiting to do that. Like I came for that ritual. That's what I really was like, I am coming for that ritual. Justin had experienced Andy's work several years ago. And I remember getting a voice note from him where he's like in tears and was processing his experience with me and being like, I cannot believe this was one of the most powerful things he'd ever done. And so I knew I was like, okay, if I ever have the chance to do that, I would like to experience that. And then of course, Justin brought it here to Miami and we all got to experience together. And it was really unique because I think that probably a lot of people that do this ritual, they don't know a lot of people in the container, but I think that we were fortunate. We both had, like lovers and friends and colleagues in the space. And so it was a really interesting dynamic to experience with. And I had my husband there. Yeah. And my husband and I have both been through deep portals with death. His dad died the month that we met. And it was actually a big part of his dad's death that I believe actually brought us together. And then early in our relationship, my dog passed, which I know like people are, it's like, it's a dog, but like, you don't understand. Like I didn't really have family. I didn't have like family that I felt close to. And like, I also didn't have community. I didn't have friends in my early 20s. And this dog traveled the world with me and was really like my guide. He was such a big part of who I am today. And so, and Andrew really held, and even Andrew will say, is like, I don't think that you're going to have a reaction like that when your parents pass or anyone in your family. Like that was unique. He had seen like the unique relationship we had. So anyways, I went into it with that framework, but being in the experience with my husband and being with other, couples in the experience and witnessing the grief and witnessing like it's just so hard to put into words. I'm really struggling. I think that like the biggest thing that I got from it,
this was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yeah. We literally all died yesterday.
It was like, a little bit more than 24 hours ago.
So we are literally processing and integrating.
Right now. Just to kind of speak to like, there was a lot of pain. Like I walked into the room crying, like people are different, right? And some people really struggled to get into like the realness and the gravitas, which makes sense because it's like simulated death. Like it's not actually happening intellectually. We all know that. But I could really feel it. And so it was actually the most painful for me in the beginning. It was the most there was the most anxiety in the beginning. And there was almost like this like longing for it to be easier, like longing for the suffering to end, longing for the anxiety around the pain to end around when I was going to die in this experience.
Yeah.
And then there was a moment of like relaxing and accepting and like almost making love to the longing. Like, how can I like flirt with the knowing that I'm going to die at any moment and like not try so hard to make every moment be the best moment ever, but like also like let each moment be the moment that it is and really soak it in with like the deepest juice. Cause I feel like I've lived a lot of my life, like trying to make, each moment so meaningful and impactful. And like, to be fair, that's been really great for me. I've lived a really beautiful life. And like, I actually feel like I could die tomorrow and be like, yeah, I did it. Like I lived
tantric life.
This tantric life. It was great. 10 out of 10. Didn't need to live any longer. And I would choose that. Like there are other experiences that I desire to have. So there was like a surrender and a relaxation that happened. And then when death came for myself and my husband, it was welcomed and it was ready, but there was also this reflection of watching other people have different experiences with it and being like, oh, my experience could have been really different. And not just because of like how I decided to feel about it, but circumstantially, like when it happened, you know,
right.
like
the unknown.
Yeah.
And he died before you, correct?
He did.
Again, we're speaking metaphorically. No one
actually died.
But he transitioned to the afterlife before you.
He did.
Yeah. What was that like?
That was
because there's a knowingness that you're going to be reunited in the afterlife.
Yeah, there and that feels really like we've done many lifetimes together. Like I've done a lot of death work. He's done a lot of death work. I actually did like a whole year that I devoted to death a few years ago. I say that my holy trinity is birth, death, and sex. So like that's really what I feel like I'm here to like really learn about in this life. And I really learned about sex pretty early on and went through my whole tantric journey and learned more about it. And then a few years ago, I started to do more work with birth and death. And then the same year I did like a birth doula certification, but I also did this like death retreat where I actually like went out and like did sacred hunting and harvested an animal and took a life really ceremonially. And, but like when he, like, I felt like it was for me, like the hardest part was like at the very beginning when I was like sitting with like, you're going to die, I'm going to die. I think that was when the grieving happened before he even did die. When he died, it actually felt like a relief of like, okay, like, and my turn is next. And like, how can I like dance with this like aloneness? Soak in every moment with him. And then the other truth, like the real raw truth is that I had to poop. I just like can't like be like, I can't share like this experience without just owning this. Yeah. Because
which
like,
is so tantric, by the way,
like,
where we're just like so authentic.
Yeah,
and
I'm just gonna like lay it out. Because like, here's what happened. I got so anxious about like, oh my God, he's gonna die.
Imminent.
And like, it's a very real, like, bodily response 100%. That like you like shit yourself when you're nervous or scared or you feel like your life is under threat. And my body took that on seriously and was like, you immediately need to like blow up the bathroom.
Oh shit.
So,
literally. Oh shit.
So like I'm with.
Oh my God,
yeah. So you didn't hear this, like, but
no.
I thought about sharing when he was like, did anyone have a challenging experience? And I was like, I don't know if this is where I take up my space. But the funny thing is like, so Andrew and I, we had our moment and then like, I really felt like we're really honoring this. This is beautiful. And I'm like, how do I ask if he'll like go to the bathroom with me and shit with me? But it was really sweet. So we went, like we were fortunate to have quite a bit of time together alive, quote unquote, in the experience.
You did. Yeah, it was beautiful.
And so we processed together, we cried, we had some experiences, and then we came to this like peaceful resting place where he did eventually die. But we were writing notes to each other because that was one of the things that we could do. And he's writing this, I start writing this love note and he's writing me back and we're having this exchange. And then at one point he writes, you saved my life, blah, 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 blah. And then I write, I have to poop. And it was just, we're just cackling.
I saw this.
Cackling in the corner. It was just like such an honoring of like who we are. Like we're so silly and like dumb, silly, and stupid. Yeah. And I was like, I could so like write back to him, oh my God, that's so sweet. I love you so much. But I knew that what was going to honor our relationship in the moment was for me to be my authentic self and he was going to get a kick out of it. So the truth is that when he died, so we kind of came to this place where he's like, I'm not going to go to the bathroom with you. And I was like, okay, like I kind of want you to die. Or one of us to die now so that I can go poop. So he died and it was sad. Like I had my moment of like, but I felt like I had already reckoned with it.
Grieved.
I had already reckoned with it
and
more earlier.
What's so interesting about the human experience is like, it is one of suffering. And this was very apparent in the ritual is that we're here having this human experience that we're conditioned to be like, oh, we're supposed to be enjoying ourselves and dancing and laughing and singing and all the things, fucking and playing. But like, we are crying, we are sad, we are grieving. I mean, people are grieving heavily in the aliveness.
Yeah. One thing that comes up a lot for me, and I think is really resonant for a lot of individuals in a way, is this like resentment to God. Like, what the fuck? Like, why is this real? Like, why are we living in this existence? Like where pain is a thing, and that we have this experience of death. And it's been something that I've played a lot with over the years, and still am in like a flirtation with. And I think that like, that's the beautiful thing as well about the tantric path to me, is it's not about eliminating the challenges, eliminating the pain. It's again, like, how can I use them as my teachers? How can I make love to them? How can I trust that there's like something in this for me? And I look back at every single one of like the hardest experiences of my life, and I can pinpoint exactly what it taught me, exactly why it happened, exactly how it unlocked some greater level of my priestess power. And so to me, it's the tantric path isn't about like, I'm not going to suffer anymore because I've done all the work. It's okay, how can I use the tools that I've gained in the process to come back to the knowing that I am consciously co-creating with the universe, and that there is lesson in all of this for me. And how can I really revel in this too shall pass, the good and the bad? Because like, there was everything in that. There were moments of boredom in the aliveness. And then I felt guilty for feeling bored, because I'm like, I'm about to die. I shouldn't feel guilty. And that person over there is screaming into the abyss. Like I should be doing that. Or maybe I should be fucking like those people. Right. You know, it's like, it's an interesting place to be.
Yeah. And that's why we choose to, or we're called to work with guides such as yourself, right? We need a guide. We're not meant to journey alone, because we're in this human experience, which is one of pain and suffering, and we're conditioned to believe all these things. And so some people can't like see the forest through the trees, right? Or like see the path clearly in that sense. And so working with someone like yourself can really help people like clear things, or make those connections so that they can receive the medicine and not just continue to perpetuate problems or patterns or habits and be like, my life sucks, you know? So kind of how do you guide your clients? What are the ways that folks work with you? And how are you birthing offerings to the collective now?
How am I birthing offerings? So, you know, again, like my journey has been one of like calibration and like shifting through different iterations of where do I feel the most opportunity for impact, but also the most aliveness and what feels the most authentic in this chapter for how I work with people. And so that's changed like over the years. So when I first got into this work, I was doing a lot of tantric body work, and it was, I mean, still to this day, I do maybe like 1 session a month now, maybe 0, sometimes 2 or 3. But like there is so much power in that in-person tantric body work. I've loved doing it. And then over time, I started working more virtually with people and coaching more in a white tantric context. And then I kind of put all of those together and started doing programs, and then I did retreats. And now like I'm in this space of feeling my energy really wanting to be directed into particular places. And it's been hard. It's been really hard to like go through that. So like, that's why I'm like, how do I answer this question? And cause I still feel like I'm in the unfolding of like what feels like the real next iteration of my work. And then the other truth is that I'm on the cusp of motherhood. I'm not pregnant right now, but that feels like something that's like very alive in this chapter. And I know that you've been through that, and like the truths that brings, and like I'm pre-feeling it. Like I'm pre-feeling it. Things that I used to love and feel like so excited by like aren't interesting to me anymore. And I'm having this massive ego death about it, and like feeling like, wow, I've created these amazing containers where there's so much transformation available, but I'm not feeling in it like I used to. I'm not feeling the same like facilitation high as I would have in the past. And like, what does this mean? So all that being said, like to answer your actual question, the journey over the years has felt different in each chapter, but what feels really alive right now for me, and like where I feel like I'm pouring most of my energy is the Tantra Love Retreat, which, you know, you've experienced. And it's one of those things, like Justin is alongside me. He's my business partner. And he's like, oh, like what's going to happen to the Tantra Love Retreat when you become a mom? And I was like, that's going to be the last thing that comes off the table. Like, don't worry. Like I'm going to always be doing the Tantra Love Retreat. I think, who knows?
We love babies at Tantra retreats. Oh yeah. So like you're going to have a Tantra baby. So like the baby will be there.
I think I would be the third pregnant person that's been through the Tantra Love Retreat. I think, I don't know. And yeah, so that's something that I really enjoy, because to me, it's just like, it's just such a great value and such a powerful transformational space.
Yeah.
And I get so much from it too. Like I learn so much from it. I'm not learning the same content as the participants, but I'm learning different edges of my own awareness and shining light on my own shadows in each container. Like to me, these retreats, it's like you're stepping into this space where we're literally creating a different paradigm. We're creating a different blueprint of what it means to be a human and playing that out in real time with 30 other people that are all like, sure, let's fucking do it. You know,
it's like a learning laboratory.
It really is.
I love it.
It really is.
It's like impeccable.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, it's like, I'd be remiss if I didn't honor you and Justin with what you've created and Tantra Love Retreat as this playground, this learning laboratory, and without judgment and without a lot of the like holier than thou guru energy.
Yeah.
Like you're not, like you said, you're not doing this from this place of ego. And this is why I think your share is really important. And I want to pause on it, is like when you're facilitating, you're not saying I am teacher, I am master, and I'm here to bestow wisdom upon you. You're in the human experience of it too. And you're learning and growing and evolving, exploring your edges. So it's like, yeah, it's just such a beautiful offering that you have for all individuals, right? Couples,
Yeah. And I love that too, because the other piece is that I am feeling more called to work with a specific client archetype in this chapter more than I ever have. But I love being in the Tantra Love Retreat because it's, you know, people of almost all ages. It's single men, it's single women, it's couples. And so it's really beautiful to see this, and people from all over the country, all over the world. We've had people come from Australia, from Israel, from Europe. And so it's a beautiful space where you're getting like a really beautiful swath of, you know, humanity in a way. So I really love that container. And then the place where I'm feeling really called to direct my energy in this chapter is with women, and women that are already kind of on like a spiritual path, are already curious, are already maybe even dabbling like, or maybe even more than dabbling in Tantra, but they're really wanting to step into what we were speaking about, this leadership frequency, this feminine leadership frequency, this pleasure priestess archetype, this, okay, like how can I really treat my body as a mystery school and use that to support myself, but also use that to support my beloved, to support my children, to support in my work? And how can I seduce the world into a greater good in that way by really like amplifying this power and seeing myself as a leader in this next revolution of, you know, feminism really, but in a super like a way that's really excavating those superpowers that we talked about that have been more kept in the dark or maybe even demonized, like our intuition and our emotional alchemy and our sensuality, but pairing those with the light feminine piece. And it's been amazing. I mean, I think that like there were also chapters where, as you mentioned, like this podcast is for executives and male executives as well. Like I worked with a lot of men that were building products and companies that, you know, affect millions, billions of people. And that was a different type of like impact and like touching those people and knowing that they're going to touch all these other people. Like that's incredible. Right. And that was a big part of my work for a while, but now I'm kind of shifting into this place of like really wanting to devote myself more to my feminine audience. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here now and sharing this
Thanks for
chapter.
having me.
I'm so excited for you. I'm like getting emotional because of that feminine frequency of motherhood.
I know.
Seeing you
so
as
emotional.
Yeah, such a juicy mama. Like, you know, the world needs more of that. We need more juicy mamas, and embodied mamas is like a concept that I've really been trying to birth. And maybe we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like we need that new blueprint or archetype. And so I'm just, I'm so touched that you're here for the field, for the collective. Where can folks find you, to connect with you, to follow, to reach out, to work with you?
Yeah. I'm going to add one tiny little thing. I'll be quick.
Please. Yeah.
Running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a question the other day when I started talking about my motherhood chapter on Instagram, and a woman was saying like, how are you going to like let go of your tantric priestess? And I'm like, girl, no, you don't have to do that.
No,
in fact, most of my clients are mothers, and, you know, like new mothers of many years. And it's like, to me, it's so empowering to move them from like, oh, I'm the martyr mother, into I can be this holistic queen. So anyways, just planting that there. I'm really excited to be evidence for that.
As the embodied fusion of mother and tantrika.
Yes, you are. So. Like, and not just like a little bit, like a lot. So you can find me on Instagram at Talk Tantra To Me. My book, Sacred Sex Ed, is on Amazon. It's the sex education that you probably didn't have, but that we all desperately need. And my website's talktantratome.com. You can find out about upcoming retreats and containers there.
And you have a podcast as well.
I do, yes. Talk Tantra To Me is the podcast as well.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love you. Thank you.
Love
so
you.
much.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. You're welcome.